Welcome back, my friends. Currently, we're on day 228 of Russia's disastrous invasion of Ukraine. And before we get to the update, let's first talk about this unusual demonetization scandal that hit YouTube over the weekend. Initially, I thought it was just YouTubers talking about the war in Ukraine who were all being demonetized, but in fact, this was a glitch in the system affecting thousands of channels across all different genres. To YouTube's credit, they did fix it within 24 hours over the weekend. On Twitter, they announced, "We're currently rolling out the fix, ETA, several hours." To everyone that messaged YouTube, tweeted at them, did whatever, thank you so much for your support. We all greatly appreciate it. Here's a post from Dennis saying his channel has been remonetized. Here's Ukraine Matters also saying they've been remonetized. And here's Artur. I messaged him on Facebook. He also said that his channel is back to normal, and he even was able to post a video today. So everything, hopefully with that, is fine for now. It was kind of a scare, but once again, the support that all of you watching our content is providing to us, it's incredibly humbling, and I'm just grateful for it. So let's now talk about that bridge that got blown up, because this is pretty spectacular. A lot of people have been waiting 8 months for this to happen, and the day has finally come. And it's important to emphasize how important this bridge is to Russia militarily. Militarily, they've been using this bridge every day for 8 months to send weapons and equipment to Crimea, ultimately to the front lines in Kherson. So Ukraine really needs to bring down this bridge in order to cut off the flow of critical supplies. And they were 50% successful. So the Crimean Bridge is 2 separate structures with 2 rail lines and 4 roads. And we're going to talk about maybe the speculation of who did it and how they did it. But one section of the bridge for passenger cars has completely collapsed into the ocean. And on the rail line, this explosive hits a passing train that was carrying fuel. So either this was deliberately timed, or this is the luckiest strike in the world. So one of the rail lines, according to Russian sources, is still operational. This video was taken today, 2 days after the attack, and they haven't been able to clear the second line of these fuel cars that caught on fire. So is the other line going the other direction still operational for two-way traffic? I don't believe Russian propaganda. But what's really bizarre is this other section of road that didn't collapse. And here's a post on Twitter. Absolutely insane. The Ministry of Transport announces they will resume traffic on the undamaged 2 lanes. But look at this road. What civil engineer examined this road and said, yeah, this road is good for trucks to go across? So what Russia is doing is, even though it's 2 lanes, they've put up cones to turn it into 1, and they're only letting 1 car go across the road at a time. I'm guessing they're going to restrict civilian access, so if civilians need to get across the straits, they're going to have to use the ferry. And it's entirely possible that by Russia promoting this propaganda and forcing traffic across the bridge before it's structurally ready, Russia might inadvertently destroy their own bridge. Safety standards in Russia is not too good. Here's a video that went viral in the last couple days of an S-300 air defense system that just fell off the back of a truck somewhere in Russia. So we know that their maintenance and safety guidelines are not too good. But this bridge was the most heavily defended, heavily fortified military target or installation in Russia. They had smoke screens, they had air defense, they had electronic jamming barges. Reportedly, Russia has also bragged that they have dolphins patrolling and protecting this bridge. So who did it? How did they do it? And the obvious culprit is Ukraine. It's easy to say Ukraine is the one that attacked this bridge, but Ukraine isn't taking credit for it. And I think that's the smart thing to do because now there's all these conspiracy theories and paranoia that some faction in Russia did this. This might actually be an inside job. And there are lots of people in Russia right now, because of mobilization, that want to see this war end. Before mobilization, you could say it's only volunteers or the unlucky few that have to go to Ukraine and put up with this. But because of mobilization, every Russian man, every Russian family in the country now has an incentive to see Russia lose, give up on this war, and bringing down this bridge would be the best way to do it. So was it a missile? Was it a truck bomb? Was it a bomb underneath the bridge? One, I don't think it's a missile. I think air defense systems would have gone off. There are lots of fake videos on social media being circulated of people adding UFOs or missiles coming into the bridge. It's not legit. But to bring down this section of the bridge right here, I'm inclined to believe that there was explosives planted underneath, either by a maintenance crew or maybe some kind of boat or barge that snuck underneath. But I don't really know. I think the fact that it hit this train at the exact moment it was going over the tracks, that also leads me to believe it wasn't a truck bomb to be driving a truck and perfectly time it to hit these fuel cars. It makes more sense if there was a bomb planted underneath the bridge and they just waited for the train to go by so that they could get 2 for 1. To me, that seems the most smart. And the best part of this bridge getting struck, the sweet irony is that this was Putin's 70th birthday. Obviously, with the war going on, he decided not to have too flashy of an event. And leaders around the world snubbed Putin on his birthday. The biggest snub of all is from President Xi Jinping of China. He chose not to congratulate Putin on his 70th birthday. Now, maybe people are reading too much into this, but Xi also sent an official letter to Tajikistan's president on his 70th birthday just 2 days prior. So obviously, snubbing Putin on his birthday was a deliberate move by China. And here's an article from Newsweek. Chinese social media has branded Russia a weak goose after their failures in Ukraine. Russia has earned the unsympathetic moniker weak goose on Chinese social media following the country's strategic missteps in Ukraine. And I think China for months now has been extremely irritated with how the Russian military has performed. I'm confident Putin, prior to this war, gave Xi guarantees how easy this would be, how the Russian military was going to roll into Ukraine, knock them out 7 to 10 days tops, easy war, and then Russia could help China with their own strategic objectives. It's not turning out that way. So with the war in Ukraine going so poorly for Russia, the mayor of St. Petersburg has decided to cancel Christmas. Yes, this is true. In St. Petersburg, they're scrapping their usual annual New Year's and Christmas celebrations to instead buy supplies for mobilized soldiers. But because this is the Russian military, more than likely this money will be stolen. Even if they manage to purchase supplies, more than likely those supplies will also be stolen or lost before they reach any Russian men on the front lines. Lots of intercept calls over the last 2 weeks since mobilization have been captured by Western intelligence and the Ukrainians. This clip is 2 minutes long. I'm not going to play it for you. I'll link everything down below in the description. But this is a man who was recently mobilized, calling home to his family, telling them, don't allow anyone else in the family to be mobilized. Dad, uncle, brother, cousin. Get them out of the country if you have to. Coming to Ukraine is a terrible idea. So this is This is something that the Russian military didn't have to experience in 1917 or 1941. Anyone with a cell phone or internet access calling their loved ones after mobilization saying, "This war is a terrible idea. People on the front lines are being used as cannon fodder. Do everything you can to get, brother Ivan out of the country." So with mobilization woes for the Russian government, what's their plan? And frozen fish and limitless cabbage, how Russia is motivating draftees. When even money and patriotism are insufficient to inspire Russians to sign up to fight in Ukraine, it's time to bring out the big guns, such as food staples. At least 3 Russian regions are promising to reward the families of new recruits with livestock, fish, and vegetables since Putin ordered his mobilization 2 weeks ago. I know that in certain parts of Russia, poverty is pretty bad, but is limitless cabbage really enough to convince your son or brother or loved one to go and die in Ukraine? That's what they're currently experimenting with in Russia. And these poorer regions of Russia are more and more figuring it out, that they're being targeted, they're being heavily mobilized to spare the Russian male populations of St. Petersburg and Moscow. There still is a little bit of mobilization going on in St. Petersburg and Moscow, but it's apparent to everyone that Putin is doing everything he can to not mobilize the people of those 2 cities in order to keep them happy, prevent them from rioting, prevent them from protesting in the streets. So here's an interesting clip from a Dagestani man who talks about the leadership in the Kremlin and how they're sending everyone else's sons to go fight in this war in Ukraine, but not their own. This man does acknowledge that at least the Chechen leader Kadyrov is sending his sons to at least do TikTok in Ukraine. But the other significant leaders in the Kremlin, they all have sons or sons-in-laws, and none of them are currently fighting in Ukraine. That's an observation that is catching on amongst the ethnic minorities in Russia.
Салам алейкум. Я обращаюсь к тем, кто сидит в высоких кабинетах, прячется от войны, а наших детей отправляет на верную смерть. Мы, жители Дагестана, патриоты России, и готовы заплатить за это любую цену, но цена должна быть равная для всех. Рамзан Кадыров отправляет своих сыновей, 3 молодых львов на Украину, чтобы они показали себя в бою. А кто еще из политиков отправил воевать своих детей? Может, Песков? Нет. Медведев? Нет. Патрушев? Нет. Может, служит хоть один зять Путина? Тоже нет. Тогда какое вы имеете право отдавать такие приказы? Трусливая овца не может командовать армией львов. Такие люди не могут править Россией. Они недостойны. Уйдите. Освободите место храбрецам.
So more and more people in Russia are being brave enough to speak out. This man doesn't exactly seem anti-war. He just seems to be opposed to the current leadership of his country. I mean, I'll take that. That's good enough for me as long as he's anti-Putin. And concerning the mobilization and men fleeing, we've talked about previous countries that are taking in most of these Russian men: Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Georgia, Finland. But I didn't have on the list Alaska and the United States. Russians have landed in Alaska to seek asylum according to US authorities. 2 Russians who landed in a remote part of rural Alaska are seeking asylum in the United States. The pair landed just weeks after Putin ordered an unpopular mobilization with his citizens. And these 2 Russian men landed on the island of St. Lawrence. I'm American. I apologize to residents of Alaska, but I didn't know this island existed, and it really isn't that far from the Russian coastline if you can get to this part of Russia. So if we zoom out, here's Alaska, here's Kamchatka. The United States controls this island in between the two, and these Russian men landed here on this fishing settlement. I don't know how many people could possibly live here, but yeah, they made it there to the land of the free and asked for asylum. I hope they get it. So with mobilization being a disaster and the Russian ground forces continuing to lose ground to the Ukrainian military, we've been getting these rumblings for days and even a couple weeks now of people within Russia criticizing senior military leadership. And you don't get to criticize people in Russia, especially in the press or on television, unless that's propaganda approved by Putin himself. So there's been this undertone, this movement, this wheels set in motion to get rid of Sergei Shoigu and Gerasimov. These are the Minister of Defense and the head of the General Staff. We haven't gotten confirmation from Putin or the Kremlin yet, but there are lots of reports that these two men have been arrested and they're being removed from their positions. They're going to be the fall guys in the short term for all of this confusion and chaos concerning the war, but it doesn't matter who you replace them with. The entire structure of the Russian military is corrupt and inept, and it doesn't matter in the short term. Their soldiers are poorly equipped, poorly trained, poorly motivated. Replacing these two men isn't going to fix the problems with the Russian military. And Putin's grand strategy is to attempt to freeze the conflict and wait out this winter and hoped public opinion changes in Western democracies. But we have more bad news for Putin. 3 in 4 Americans now say the United States should continue to support Ukraine despite Russia's nuclear threats. This poll number is interesting because just a month ago, it was 66%. This is Americans in favor of continuing supplying support to Ukraine. That number is now up to 73%. So the success of the Kharkiv counteroffensive is increasing people's willingness to support Ukraine. So this is double bad news for the Russians. So Putin's plan to freeze the conflict until public opinion turns against the Ukrainians' favor, this is already backfiring. Last two clips, normally I wrap up these videos with just positive messages, positive videos about Ukraine, but I think this video of this Luhansk fighter is kind of important for you to see. I can't call him a Russian soldier because he's not. He's a Ukrainian citizen, he was born in Ukraine, that was force mobilized by Russia to participate in the war, to do the Russian military's bidding, to fight against Ukraine. And he was captured. He was also wounded, so I'm going to cut off the bottom maybe fifth of this video. There's a tourniquet on his leg. He's been injured. He's receiving first aid from these Ukrainian soldiers. They're saving his life. And you can just kind of feel the conversation between this Luhansk resident with the proper Ukrainian soldiers who have captured him. And you can see, the sympathy and the pity that these Ukrainian uniformed military members have for this man. He's emaciated, he's starving, he's weakened. Let's just watch the video and you'll feel it too.
Как это видишь, от сердца оторвал,
Я
блядь.
вижу.
Шаурма.
Давно шаурму ел.
Давай кавай, блядь. Такое, блядь, нихуя себе.
Нет, ну в смысле там одно из моих любимых.
Ну, видишь, прикинешь, ты попал, тебя даже кормят, что ты любишь больше всего. Ты кидаешь мне?
Жена твоя, да?
Иконы.
Да.
Дети есть?
Нет, нету.
Блядь, все впереди. Какого хуя вы лезете сюда?
Родители живы? Мать жива, отец в компании.
Тоже на войне?
Нет, сахарный диабет.
За что сидел?
Я не сидел.
Ну ты же говорил, что у тебя проблемы с законом были.
Нет, это нам угрожали, если, короче, отказываешься от мобилизации, от вот этого вот, типа на 2 недели, 108 лет.
Сколько денег платят?
Говорят, что платят 75 за все месяцы, ну, никто денег не получил.
Еще ни разу не заплатили? За 5 месяцев?
Да, потому что деньги выдают там, а туда нас за все это время ни разу не отпустили.
So this Luhansk fighter looks like he's being treated well, but you can just see the relief in his body language. All the propaganda that Russia has been feeding this man for over 8 years, it just melts away as the Ukrainians share their shawarma sandwich with him, and they give him some tea. They're also giving him first aid. He is going to be treated and processed like a prisoner of war, but his life was saved. Hopefully when this war is over, he can be repatriated by the Ukrainian government and find some form of forgiveness. But he had been fighting for over 5 months and hadn't been paid once. The Russians were telling these men, you won't get paid until the war is over and you go back to your home city. It's just a sad situation all around. Meanwhile, how are the Ukrainian soldiers being fed? What is their food situation on the front lines? Here's a Ukrainian soldier doing an unboxing, sharing with everyone the shipment of food that they receive of fresh vegetables, beef jerky, soda, etc. So this clip is about 1.5 minutes long.
Не доїдає. Так. Голодай. Да, голодай.
Що там?
Дивіться. Це таке тут.
Дивись на ложном платежном на оплата при получении дает поддержку.
Так, сало,
Ого!
масло, сир,
Ого!
туалетна бумага, моюще. Так, це подаруночок ковдра, щоб я не замерзав.
Ага, отлично.
Так, огірочки, укропчик, олійка.
О, буде салотик. Салотик буде. Сьогодні буде салотик. Що там? Що там у нас ще?
Чув?
Ого! Ого!
Так, ну а тут
Та
поставилися
ти що?
ковбаски нам передали, щоб ми не слабіли. Печиво до
Це
кави,
капець.
ліончики,
Все.
копчене совко.
В общем, в столовку можна
Майонез. Ігор, згущене молоко, інкасото.
2 тижні можна не ходити тепер в столовку.
Фрукти, консерви.
Так.
Morale looks good to me. Getting good food on the front lines makes a world of difference. That's all for this update video. Glory to the heroes, glory to Ukraine. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support my channel. Questions or comments, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, take care, be safe.